Hey everyone, welcome back to Tactical Magic. This is Molly Mandelberg, your host, and I have a very awesome guest with me today. So I met Katie Christianson by chance. I was in Santa Fe and I have a dog with me, you guys know, when I travel, and I wanted to go soaking in 10,000 waves in Santa Fe or maybe to Ojo Caliente, and I wanted somebody to watch my dog. So I went on Rover, which I use, which is like Airbnb for dog sitting, and showed up for a meet and greet with Katie and her husband and their dog. And come to find out, we have so much in common when it comes to business and marketing and serving our clients the ways that we do. So I was really excited to bring Katie onto the show today and just get to pick her brain about the magic that she does with business. So if you're an entrepreneur, you've been thinking about being an entrepreneur, or you've been maybe thinking about quitting being an entrepreneur because what the hell? This is going to be a fun episode for you. Hang tight. We'll be right back.
It's not just about mastering technology. It's not just about brand or messaging. It's not just about making more money. It's about showing up in a big way so your people can find you. This is about bringing your most wild and authentic self into the hustle and grind. Welcome to Tactical Magic, a business strategies podcast for the warrior goddess entrepreneur.
So Katie Christianson is the owner and head bitch in charge at Unwhelm Coaching. She has spent decades successfully and not so successfully managing ADHD while simultaneously living the life of the overcommitted serial entrepreneur and parenting 5 kids. She has done everything from doggy daycare and boarding to founding a public charter middle school. Katie is deeply committed to honesty and vulnerability, and is always looking for opportunities to forge and deepen authentic connection. At Unwhelm Coaching, she's in the business of empowering women in business. Described as my business ride or die, a paid best friend, and my external brain, Katie is dedicated to her clients' success and peace. As a woman who's constantly manages overwhelm, Katie specializes in bringing order to chaos. Katie shares her Santa Fe, New Mexico home with Chief Canine Officer Peter Brady, and her husband, Mr. Unwhelm, the author Joe Cooke. She enjoys skiing and performing with her band, Katie and the Good Things. What a great band name.
Thank you. It's a rotating cast of characters, so it's always good. throw in a rotating cadre of good things.
I love that. So welcome to the show, Katie. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm delighted to be with you today.
Yeah. So head bitch in charge at Unwhelm Coaching. Can we start with just talking about what Unwhelm Coaching is? I feel like we got a little bit of a taste of it so far from your bio, but.
Sure. I love to say that we're in the business of empowering women in business because I don't have a tidy menu of services, and I resist wholeheartedly the business advice to niche down because I do manage ADHD. And so if I niche down, then it's every opportunity for my brain to get bored and to say, oh, we should do something else. Or maybe we should branch out. So I just said, fuck it, I'll just branch out all the time anyway. So I do everything from leadership coaching to project management to nonprofit strategic planning. But my absolute favorite thing to do is when I have a client who comes to me and says, it just feels like there's so much and I just need help kind of getting my shit together, because that's the opportunity for me to walk with them through where is the overwhelm coming from? How does it show up for them? And what are the messages behind the overwhelm? So I think the key difference in the way that I do business is that I'm not here to help you get to inbox zero. I don't care if you're at inbox zero or not. If that's what you want, I'll help you get there. But I don't have a prescribed method, and I don't say you need to use these products or do it this way. I simply say, what works for you? What's not working for you now? How do we make it work for you? And I'm really in the business of co-creating solutions. So that's why one of my clients calls me her paid best friend, because I don't come in and sort of do this audit and say, these are the things you should change. Instead, we work together and we walk this path together, and we stay flexible, but still always working toward a goal. So my favorite thing to work with is overwhelmed female entrepreneurs.
Yeah. And there's so much to navigating that. I mean, I like how you said there's all these different places that overwhelm can come from. And once you're willing to actually acknowledge what those are, it's so much easier to address and game plan a way to get through them. So super, super important work. I was actually just before this call talking to my group program folks in Magnetic Influencer Collective, which is lovingly called Magic, my Magic program, about how acknowledgement can be sort of an antidote to overwhelm. Like if we're willing to actually acknowledge ourselves, acknowledge the progress we're making, acknowledge the things we are doing and achieving, acknowledge how we're even showing up at all, that can create a new patterning that is the opposite of overwhelm. Overwhelm is like there's never enough. Everything I do is never enough. There's always more, and it's going to be this uphill battle forever until you just collapse and burnout. I'm curious, what are some other aspects to unwhelming, just like tips and tricks that maybe people could walk away with?
Thank you. I'm so relieved to hear you talk about these things, because the culture that female entrepreneurs are dumped into, just absolutely dropped, sink or swim, is the constant grind. And one of my favorite mottos, I swear I'm getting t-shirts made that say "fuck the grind," because there, the Unwhelm framework that I use is 7 steps, which sounds like a very prescribed program, but it's really a matter of starting at the beginning. So the first step in the Unwhelm process is it's all just so overwhelming. And this is a step where I talk with my clients and we walk through what are the things outside of your control that put you in this place. So if you're a woman who is a parent, who is either in an unhealthy relationship, or you're struggling on your own as a single woman with kids, if you come from a patriarchal family, those characteristics put you at a very different starting point than someone who went to school and got an MBA and has inherited wealth and has an entrepreneurial set of parents, right? So that acknowledgement is so vital. And there's a game I play called The Worst Game Show Ever. And it has 4 parts. The first is Society Sucks. And that's where you acknowledge things that are like the patriarchy and not having inherited wealth, or not have been able to go to college. Or if you're a woman of color, what does that do? If you don't speak English as your first language, what are those pieces that position you in your starting point? Mm-hmm. The second part of that is responsibility roundup. And so these are the things that live with you, that the buck stops with you. That could be things like remembering your kids' shoe sizes, having to take care of an elder parent, being aware. So in my case, my husband's a cancer survivor. And so I'm constantly aware of his health and his needs, because he has an immunocompromised position. So welcome pandemic, and having to manage that for 3 years now, right?
And damn it, I like
that. So there are other pieces of that game show, but what it does is not position someone as a victim, but rather it simply illuminates that we are, as women, in a system that was designed to disempower us, to keep us from resources, from power, from space, both societal and sort of like metaphysical, that we have been trained our whole lives to quiet down, to do more listening, to do less shining. And so when we acknowledge that, as you've pointed out, then it suddenly reframes all of those things that look like failure. So I am a serial entrepreneur. I'm a very bad employee, so I just start my own businesses. But that means that I've been taking risks and failing and succeeding in various ways. And so instead of feeling like I'm just never enough, I can't do this right, I can look then and say, wow, I'm working in a system that doesn't want me to succeed, but here I am showing up every day, day after day. Way to go, me. I'm such a badass. So that's a very different conversation. And then the second step in the framework is to feel all the feelings, because once you start to open that conversation, it really makes you understand it can be really frustrating because the system hasn't changed, but it really helps you kind of understand that the way that we speak to ourselves and the way that we frame our success is a very narrow frame in a very patriarchal, masculine business model. It has to do with competition. It has to do with financial success. It has to do with very limited resource kind of thinking. And when you open up, when you kind of blow the sides off of that, it brings up a lot of feelings. So my position is, and if there was one sort of tip or piece of information your listeners could take away, it's that number one, it's not your fault. So stop taking it on. Also, that's hubris. Like we can control everything anyway. We think we can.
Yeah.
But number two, now you get the opportunity to change it. So instead of feeling like we're bad at business, instead we think about all of the power and gifts and skills and abilities that we bring to the table.
Yeah. Which is, I mean, for anyone, more than we usually acknowledge, but just that practice of taking stock and being willing to celebrate yourself and give yourself credit and high five yourself along the way. It's the difference between burning out and not.
Yeah.
It's really powerful. And I think many of us who have experienced burnout, we don't want to do that again. And instead of shying away from following your dreams or answering the call to do something greater, it's like, how can we set ourselves up to be supported and to be celebrated every step of the way?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can find the steps of the Unwhelm framework on the website, and I have a book coming out, and we could talk about the framework all day long because it works for almost any situation, and you can just use it. It's not proprietary. It's not magic. It just is. But the fact that we can, the very fact that we're sitting here having this conversation and we can acknowledge the power that we each individually hold, that simply amplifies our collective power. So hype women is one of my favorite thing, right? It's enabling my fellow female business owners or people in business or humans who are trying to survive in a patriarchal capitalist society. The collective voice, the support that we bring to one another is a kind of magic that cannot possibly be duplicated or packaged or bought or sold. Every single time I bring women together, and all I have to do is hold space. That's it. I ask one or two questions and then just hold the space. That's the magic. It's always magic.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there's also the conversation that's come up in plenty of conversations, but a few recently, of a client who's maybe afraid of being too big or too much, especially when surrounded by other women. And it comes from this, wherever it comes from, there is this, I think, underlying misconception that for me to be big is to take up space. That means there's less space for others. And what I love that you're saying is that it's the opposite of that. When you're willing to be your bigness, when you're willing to take up space and share your magic or your brilliance, it actually invites others to be more of their greatness. It actually increases the possibility for others to choose that for themselves as well. So the toning it down or the shaming it or the making ourselves smaller to fit inside that box, which maybe is the patriarchy telling us to do that, but we'll get into that another time. Not worth it. Not worth it.
Yeah.
It is actually so much better for everyone involved to witness the brilliance, the shining. And so, whatever support you need to get, whether it's Katie or me or some other kind of support system, or even just a friend who really fully has your back and will help you unpack this stuff and navigate it, it's worth it to find a way to choose that and courageously move in that direction. Yeah.
One of the things that also happens when you do invite authenticity, and this is something that I really admire about your philosophy and the way that you do business, Molly, is that you're not here for the bullshit. You're not here for the small talk. You are here to really dig deep and to be authentic and to uncover those really personal truths that help us shine. And so, another piece where I think I differ from other sort of business coaches and traditional models of business support is that I am here to talk about how it feels, because the way that it feels informs how we make our decisions. So I'm happy to get to a strategic plan with you and set goals and define measurables and make you a dashboard. All of that is fine. But first, I'm going to ask you why. What keeps you awake? What scares you? What are the pieces of you that you have been afraid to share? Um, the I have a dear friend who says that people don't show up to work with me because I'm an expert. And when she said that, I was like, "Excuse me." And she said, "No, they show up and work with you because you walk alongside with them, because you're not afraid to say, I don't know, or I've never done that, or I screwed that up last week. Let's work it together." And then another friend who says they don't show up perfection; they show up for magic, and the magic is really 90% of the time, it's just being honest and vulnerable. So if you can't say, if your mindset is that failure is fatal, or that if your social media presence isn't perfect, then your business is going to fail, I'm probably not the coach for you.
Right.
But this morning I posted a social media video, and BT dubs, I hate structured social media planning and strategy. I have a dear friend who is incredibly good at it, and I'm really looking forward to hiring her. But on the other hand, showing up authentically, no makeup, unshowered, wrinkles and all, that's where I live. So this morning I was posting in my pajamas, like, oh, I was supposed to be doing 7 things, and instead I vacuumed the house in my pajamas, right? Like,
Yes.
so if that sort of thing resonates in the same way that sort of being big opens space and invites other people to share their glory, being real and talking about not remembering to pick up my ADHD medication because I have ADHD, if that invites somebody else to say a thing that has felt shameful, but now is just common knowledge, I feel like that's the biggest, most important work that I can do.
Yeah. And so refreshing from the like status quo of social media presence that just glorify the life and the power and the wealth or whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
even in van life culture, the perfected, the van life accounts that are just glorifying this lifestyle, it's not 100% true. It often leads other people not to feel empowered and excited. It leads other people to feel, jealous or, desiring an ideal that isn't completely transparently being showcased, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that realness, that authenticity, that willingness to show up exactly as you are when you feel called to share the message is, yeah, that's my jam. I'm into that.
Yeah.
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 Sharing the
I'm
vulnerable
gonna
truth.
Yeah, vulnerability and honesty are so incredibly powerful. Of course, I'm a big fan of Brene Brown, and Liz Gilbert and other brilliant women who write about shame and about the antidotes to shame. And in my experience in my life, I spent a great deal of time hiding a whole lot of me because I felt like I needed to show up a certain way.
Mm.
Um, these days, I'm perfectly happy to show up with no filter, no makeup. Like there are days when I look in the mirror and go, "Oh, I forgot to draw on my eyebrows today." Like I kind of ran out of fucks, and every time I think this isn't perfect or this isn't right, I shouldn't post this or I shouldn't talk about this, but then I do it anyway. I listen to the voice that says this might be important to someone else.
Mhm.
Then every single time it resonates with someone else and gives them the space to say, I don't have to hold this anymore. Oh, hell, I haven't showered either, right? Just that, just the opportunity to say, I feel that way. And to just be okay with it, to just feel it, is something that we as women have certainly been conditioned out of. But women in business, the glorification of the grind, of the perfectionism, of you show up. I mean, I don't know how many times I've heard you don't get a second chance to make a first impression, so don't go out of the house without your business blazer on, or don't show up in public any way you wouldn't want to be photographed. And I don't have time for that. I don't have
No,
time.
me either.
I mean, chances are I'm going to be doing something else anyway, and, doing 4 or 5 other things because that's how I operate. So I'm just gotten to a point, part of it is age for sure, but I've definitely gotten to a point where if I can't really be me, if I can't show up and just not have to pretend, then I'm probably not going to show up.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the beauty of that authenticity, is the people who want to work with you are drawn to you because of that truth. They're drawn to you because you're not polished all the time. You're not, the egotistical, grindy expert that some people are turned on by and lit up by. And I've learned some great things from some of those experts that are
Sure.
on all the time, and that's
Yeah.
just not how I roll. And my clients like that messiness. They like that creativity. They like that I'm showing up as me, saying, I run a 6-figure business out of the back of my van.
Right.
That's not a very glorious way to say I can help you with your business. But the clients who want to work with me love that about me. They love that freedom. They want that time freedom that my lifestyle showcases is possible. And it doesn't have to come in a pretty little bow. And the people who are going to judge me because of the way that I live are obviously not the clients that I want to work with. If I have to
Right.
fake my background, my Zoom
Right.
background to
I
look
train.
better for them, it's not going to fit. Yeah, you guys are friends. She's friends with
Yeah.
my dog. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's important.
Yeah. Yeah. I do really appreciate the sort of opportunities I've had to um, push back against what I call my inner asshole. So, my husband actually broke both of his arms in a ski accident at the end of January. And raise your hand if you're a female business owner, because the business is me. I don't have employees. I am just me. That means that when I needed to 24/7 take care of a man with 2 broken arms, everything had to come to a screeching halt. So with every day that went by, I could feel the shoulds piling up. I could feel the sense of urgency building. And I kept feeling like I had been building this momentum. I've been sort of filling the pipeline and really developing some consistency, which is a really difficult area for me. So I was sort of okay, I'll use the word smug. I was a little smug about, just patting myself on the back. And the universe was like, let's see how you really feel about it. And so I got the opportunity to put everything on hold and to have to. I didn't have a choice, right? It wasn't like I could go, oh, well, I can sometimes do this. My husband was hurt really, really badly. And in the state of New Mexico, there is no safety net. There was no one else to help. No, our insurance wouldn't cover anybody. There is no short-term disability in the state of New Mexico. It was a man who literally could not feed or dress himself, and I'm with him 24/7. So it was a really good opportunity for me to just have to be with the overwhelm. There was nothing I could do about it. I just had to sit there in it. And with every sort of step in progress that my husband made, and sort of more independent, the more my time sort of became my own again, the more I felt paralyzed, because I felt like, where do I start again? I was like starting over. And I kept thinking, well, I should post a social media update. I should send out a blog post. Should. And one day I was out at the dog park, because the way that I paid the bills was I do doggy daycare. I love it. And I can do that and coaching at the same time, because the dogs are really good at office work. But I one day was just thinking to myself, well, I'll just, I don't know. It's just this inertia. I don't know what to do. And I realized, oh, hey, if only there were some way to get out from under this overwhelm. If only I had some process I could follow. If only somebody had written these steps down for me to follow. And I was like, hey, teacher. So I went back to the drawing board and I was like, okay, there is a lot right here that has been out of my control. And how do I feel about it? And what is that? How is that showing up? How is that manifesting? And I had to get honest and vulnerable with myself and say, it is showing up by absolutely paralyzing me. I am letting the overwhelm dictate how I'm moving forward. And it's safer than taking a risk and putting something out there and starting over again. This feels safer to be kind of stuck here than to be out there in the world again.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I made a video walking around the dog park and I was like, this is not at all the image that I would love to present. I would love to look like Rachel Rogers on her website. She's the founder of the We Should All Be Millionaires Club. She's stunning, right? Or like Denise Duffield Thomas in her cute little Elizabethan wear with that fabulous photo shoot. That would be great. I'd love to do that, but it's just not me. It's just not. I don't. I simply can't. And trying to get there creates such a place of paralysis for me that I stop taking those risks. Mm-hmm. But the minute I dip my toe back in, I say, oh, what's my goal? What do I want to achieve? How am I going to achieve that? It is not posting until it's just right. Is that going to achieve my goal? And I was like, you know what? Just make the damn video. Just tell people where you are. I was overwhelmed. I was stuck in inertia. And how did I get out? I did three things. I made a list of a very short list of really, really easy tasks, like reply to an email, like update my calendar, like very, very small things. Check on my Calendly links, make sure they're working, right? But it was very small, concrete tasks. The second thing I did was sat down and wrote. I journaled. I just said, how am I feeling? And then I did the 5 whys exercise. Why do I feel that way? Why do I feel that way? Why do I feel that way? And I finally felt like I got to the root of it, which was this fear of taking that risk. And that feeling overwhelmed and having to manage the household and being a caregiver again, that was safe for me, even though it was overwhelming because I knew it. Mm-hmm. And then the third thing I did was I just showed up. I just said, I'll just do one thing and see how it goes. And you know what? It happens every time. You would think I would learn, but it happened again where people reached out to me via DM and text and phone call and said, hey, I'm glad you're doing better. I've been feeling really stuck too. So once again, showing up with that vulnerability and that honesty opened space for other women. And all I had to do was just take that first step.
Yeah. And I love that you recognize that you have the process that's the funny thing about claiming, I mean, even though it's not a niche, so to speak, it is kind of a niche that you help people with overwhelm. Yeah. Sometimes the universe hands you up a very hefty dose of walk your talk now. And you did it beautifully. And I'm sorry that happened to your husband. And also what a beautiful opportunity to walk that talk and do the work that works, that you've helped so many people to also navigate. It's really awesome. So thank you for the vulnerability of sharing that story. And I'm high-fiving you for showing up in that moment and choosing to do those small action steps or concrete tasks and also make the video and be the example for the stuff that you had already been broadcasting about being an example for. So that's really beautiful. I think there's probably people listening that are like, hey, I might be overwhelmed and I don't know what to do next. And how do I get a hold of you? So what are the best places for people to follow you or, stay in touch?
Perfect. I don't do the Twitter, and I like to be sanctimonious and say it's because of Elon Musk, but really Twitter just overwhelms me.
Me too.
The Twitterverse is a bad place for people with ADHD. It's just So you can follow me on the other socials. You can follow me on Insta, the Grizzle, the Face Places, and the Tiki Takis at Unwhelm Coaching. And unwhelm is a real word, and it simply means to bring someone out from under something that has overwhelmed them. So it's UNWHELM, Unwhelm Coaching. All of my handles are at Unwhelm Coaching. And you can also, of course, go to unwhelmcoaching.com and you can check out our past interviews like this one and our podcasts and other cool stuff. And one of the coolest pieces, I think, of the website is that almost every guest who's been with me provides some cool tool or resource for free. And so if you sign up for a free account, you get access to all of these other amazing women and their advice and their tools. And once again, all I have to do is just hold space. So come hang out in that space with us.
Awesome. Definitely check that out. We'll give you the link to unwhelmcoaching.com in the description and link you over to Katie's social media too. So grateful for the magic that you've shared on this call today. And you've already shared so much wisdom, but are there any last words of wisdom you want to leave people with?
Thanks. No pressure, right?
Whatever comes out is perfect.
Thank you. I encourage all of the women who are listening to reach out to another woman in a space of vulnerability, whether it's somebody that you admire and you've been a little intimidated, or it's somebody who looks up to you, or somebody you just want to know a little bit better. But my best, highest advice is reach out to another woman with honesty and vulnerability, because even if it doesn't result in a magical relationship, it gives you practice for showing up for the right people.
Love that. Really powerful. And it's such a beautiful thing to receive. And I think when you receive messages like that, it makes you want to send more of them. And so it really is this ripple effect of magic that you can share out in the world. Awesome, Katie. Once again, great advice, great insights. Thanks for being on the show. And
thanks so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to spend time with you, Molly.
You too. So much fun. And I get to see you this weekend, which will be fun.
Yay!
Yay. And thank you everyone out there for listening. We're super grateful for people like you who listen to podcasts. And personally, I'm really grateful for anyone out there who's listening, who's actually, making strides to find that authenticity or to ask themselves deeper questions. There's a beautiful rising tide of that kind of awareness on this planet. And if you're listening to this episode, I'm guessing you're part of that rising tide. And I appreciate the hell out of that in you. So thanks for doing your work. Whatever happens, keep asking big questions, taking bold action, because you are here for a reason. We'll see you next time.